Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and today I am so jazzed to have an incredible guest. We have been following this man. We've been wanting him on our podcast. He is incredible, and I feel like what he's doing is changing the way dentists are doing dentistry. I think he's kind of in this new age, new era, adapting with the times, and so I'm so excited to bring him on and have his knowledge. So welcome to the show, Dr. Robert DiPilla's. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be on your show. I heard so many great things about you on your show. And I once again, I went back to some of your podcasts and some great guests on there.
Well, thank you. I'm quite shocked. Dental Team's about to release their 1,000th episode. And I was thinking, I cannot believe I've been on this microphone 1,000 times. So I'm super honored that you are a part of that journey. And really, everyone who listens to the podcast knows our ultimate goal at Dental Team is to positively impact the world of dentistry in the greatest way possible. And so bringing guests on like yourself, people who are passionate about dentistry, making sure that we keep the passion alive in dentistry, making sure that people realize, I believe we're in the best industry we possibly could ever be in. And so I'm super excited because I feel like you're taking a new edge spin to some things in dentistry. So before we get into some of these fun topics, Dr. DiPilla's, why don't you take us through kind of your journey? I know you have a pretty interesting route of how you were able to go from where you were and where you started in dentistry to where you are today. So if you kind of want to take us on your journey, that way the audience gets to know you.
Well, that journey, starts, 36 years ago. I graduated at the University of Detroit, Mercy in 1989, and I did a residency at Harvard at the Harvard Club for doing implants. And, from that, I really was interested in a kind of cosmetic realm. So you got to think about in the early 90s, and it was kind of like touched upon. And I was very fortunate to take a course with Bill Dickerson and Larry Rosenthal. And this is the first time they were together in doing these particular courses. And my first patient for my aesthetic course was my sister, believe it or not.
That's brave.
An
aesthetic course.
It was an amazing journey. It was, she was very appreciative. It was a great case. And, from that, one interesting point, when I was in the lecture and they were talking about different materials, different processes, the way to do things. And once again, I just graduated. I did like a little surgical residency. And I thought to myself, the auditorium was packed. There's probably like 100 students. And I'm like looking around and I'm thinking to myself, am I the only dumb one here that doesn't know this? I said, this is insane. And they're going over these 7 different steps to do bonding and veneers. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I learn this in school? And
that day, I promise I didn't miss too many, right? That's what you're probably thinking. I was there.
I would promise I was there. But I promised myself since then, and it was like not say a low point in my life, but it was a low point in the sense of how come I didn't know this? And I kind of pride myself in understanding things and, certain process and procedures. And I said, from that day, this will never happen again. So that journey led into teaching with Bill Dickerson before it was LVI, and also Aesthetic Advantage with Larry Rosenthal. And as you know, there were 2 separate groups, and I had to make a decision on what camp was I going to go into. Was I going to do the LVI camp in Vegas? And mind you, I'm in Michigan. Or do I go to New York route? And my decision was New York was closer, so I went with Larry Rosenthal. So I was an instructor with him for about 3 or 4 years. And then I was invited to be a doctor in his office. And I was there for a good 10 years. And, that journey right there was like probably the highest point of my life in that particular aesthetic office. There was a lot of great contacts, a lot of great people that we met. And, I always say everything is a blessing for me. I don't hold anything back as far as this was a disappointment. This didn't happen for me, because I think everything is a growing experience. So, for me, being in Larry's office was really, truly, like I said, a blessing. It was a great thing for my career. And then I knew that when I started having a family and kids, New York, for me personally, wasn't the place for me. Coming from the Midwest values, I wanted to have the family where I grew up, because my mom is still here and my extended family is here as well. So once again, from that, I left New York, but I kept a practice in New York as well because I had a lot of patients to see. And I started my own practice in Birmingham, Michigan. And that was in 2000, probably 2003, 2004. And then from that, we grew to 5 different practices. So it's been a really challenging, once again, but it's been a great journey for us.
That's incredible. And so I'm curious because when I first started as a dental assistant, one of the doctors that I worked for had a practice in California and Utah. And so every Thursday or Wednesday, I think it was, we would close out in California and he would catch a flight and he'd go to his practice in Utah. He'd be there Thursday, Friday, fly home, and we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So did you fly back and forth between your two
I did this. I
practices?
did the same thing. I was
Okay.
when I moved back to Michigan. I would work in Michigan Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, would fly out to New York and work Thursday and Friday. And then plus New York's a great city and I stayed for the weekend and I flew back the first flight out 6 a.m. on Monday morning to make it to my practice at 9 a.m. So I did that for 7 years. So back and forth. And once again, it was great. To me, how did you do that? Why did you do that? It was just my routine and it worked out really, really well. And then there was some point where I kind of have to slow down and kind of give that up a little bit because I wanted to build more practices in Michigan.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And I was just curious because when that dentist would do it, I thought like it was so wild, but it made sense of how he was able to have the two practices. So it's either you fly back and forth for a while or you get associates. Did you end up keeping that practice in New York, or did you have an associate running it, or did you end up selling it and then focus in
Yeah, no, I
Michigan?
actually, believe it or not, a lot of my New York patients actually will fly to Michigan to
Perfect.
have their work done. And then the rest is I gave it to a really good friend of mine, Dr. Michael Kraus, that's in the city is on 49th and Madison. So, basically a lot of my patients just kind of ended up with him.
Amazing. And that's great to know. And I hope dentists heard that of when you are really great at your craft, they will fly. They will come to see you. And I think that that's something that's different in today's world. I think that it's very common for patients to fly other places rather than just going to their dentist down the street. I think people fly for different surgeries to different places. I think
100%.
for your day in, day out
Yeah.
routine, dental care, you'll probably stay closer to home.
Yeah.
But also, we only go like 2 times a year. So it's really not that much to travel if we want to.
Yeah, there's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of patients that will seek out plastic surgeons and they will go to
Mhm.
a certain destination if it's New York, LA, or Miami. And it's the same thing with dentistry. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of patients from Miami that will fly up and for me to do their work, their veneers, New York, of course, all the way even from LA. So it's been a wonderful thing. And I'm very humbled, to do that. I don't take that lightly.
No, and I think that there's when you love what you do and you're really great at what you do, people fly. I mean, I am a dental snob. I think being in dentistry, it makes me one of the worst patients. And so I'm always nervous. And so I do travel to dentists out of the state. And I think it's something of the world has changed. And so I love your journey. I love the passion you have. I love that you've built multiple practices. I think you bring an interesting perspective. And so I'm super curious because you've kind of gone into a holistic route as well. So I'm curious, how do you go from dental implants, veneers, which feels very cosmetic, into holistic?
Yeah.
Like, what's kind of the bridge? How have you done that? Because I think people feel like I'm either traditional dentistry or I'm holistic dentistry. And I feel like you're bridging this gap. And I think the world is bridging this gap as well. I don't think it's as polarized as it used to be, but what's kind of your take on that? And how did you
Yeah.
transition?
I
What
mean,
got you excited about that? Give some insights.
for you as you know, being a hygienist, to me, for our patients, we want to make sure that they have a healthy foundation, and a healthy foundation is the bone and also the gingival tissue. And doesn't matter how great of a cosmetic dentist you are, how great of an implantologist you are. The tissue has to be stable. It has to be making sure that the oral microbiome is sufficient. You got to make sure that the biofilm is eliminated. And one of the biggest things that I mentor 22 doctors here in Michigan, and from guys or gals who've just been out a year, and guys like myself that been out for 36 years. One of the things that I try to impress upon them is that don't be a mechanic of the mouth. And my feelings is that dental schools right now, and once again different than my era, is just really they're really teaching you how to pass the board exams. And then the real,
Right.
the real age of dentistry is, what you get after as far as continuing education. And I think it's really important, as you know, even being a hygienist, is that you have a patient that comes back, you did scaling and root planing, and you see them back in 3 months, and they're saying, yeah, I brush every day, I floss every day, I have the water pick that you recommended. I'm doing the oral care. I'm doing this. And they come back and it's like, oh my God, are you really flossing? Are you really brushing your teeth? No, I am. But why is that? Why are we doing maybe supervised neglect or super prophies? The question comes in is that we have to understand why. My biggest thing is the why. Why is that happening? Are we incorporated now? We're doing genetic testing. We're doing saliva testing for our patients because, as we know, a lot of the reintroduction of refractory periodontitis that happens. So even the same thing with my hygienist. We're very strong in continuing education. We're very strong in not just scaling and root planing teeth just for the matter of fact of doing it. And one of the things that my hygienists, they all know, is that if you're doing scale and root planing, what type of attachment do you want back? So I think you have to have a strong foundation in histology. You have to know the periodontium very, very well. And a lot of times in school, that was that class. I had it, but this is what I want to do. So I think, for us in dentistry, you have to move away from being that mechanic of the mouth, because I can teach my assistant to prep a tooth. Easy. But you have to understand the diagnosis and why. And it also goes back to different materials. The whole rage now is zirconia, crowns, and it's a lot stronger. But is it really? Is it, lithium disilicate, or is it feldspathic porcelain? So I think there has to be an understanding of where to place those materials in the proper patients and proper occlusion. So because a salesperson comes in, oh, this is the latest and greatest, doesn't mean that you should buy it. So I think, for me, it's kind of taking a step back and understanding dental materials, understanding the periodontium, understanding all that. I mean, the classes that we hated in school, believe it or not, I've been doing this for 36, are probably the most important now than anything else.
No, for sure. And I'm so grateful you talked about that because agreed, like the healthy foundations, I think it's so easily overlooked. So I'm curious, how did you start to incorporate this with your patients? Because you didn't come out of school having this, you didn't learn all these things right away. You started incorporating it. I think people are oftentimes afraid to add
Yeah.
this into their practices due to patient pushback. So how did you
Well,
educate your patient base?
yeah, I think it's just having a good, communication with your patient and being authentic and with our patients. We're there for them in a sense of we don't push anything, we don't sell anything, we just educate our patients. And a lot of times, if I've seen a patient for 10, 15, 20 years and I'm watching them get worse, and I'll just have that radical candor with them, saying, "Hey, listen, where do you want to go with this? How can I help you? For some reason, I'm watching you getting worse, and I don't want that. So, what can I do to help?" And we kind of stir them in that direction as much as possible. We'll do a lot of like nutritional counseling, and we see a lot of patients that, as they come in, they're not healthy,
Right.
and I have I guess, the personality to talk to my patients and say, listen, I want you to see this person. I care about you. I've seen you for many, many times. And I just, I see some things that I don't like. So what I want you to do, here's a referral. I want you to see them. And 9 out of 10 times they'll come back and say, oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't know I had this underlying condition.
Yeah. That's incredible. And I agree that education, I think, is the new age of communication. I think a lot of patients want to understand more. I think we live in this digital era where people are consuming so much more information rapidly and they want to be educated and they want to know what's going on. And I do think social media has ramped this up exponentially for people to want more education rather than just blindly following. And so I really love that you took it that way. I want to ask you a couple questions about growth of practices because I think so many people grow practices or they feel that they need to grow practices or they need to expand their practices. I'm curious, after having done that, you've had practices in multiple states, you've grown your like walk me through
Yeah.
like, when do you grow as a dentist? When do you not grow as a dentist? What are some things that you learned through that growth of multi-practice ownership? Especially with dentists that are in today's world, I think that there are some that are brand new. There's the DSO on the radar and on the horizon for people. Walk me through some of your thoughts around this practice growth, multi-location. When do I grow? What do I do with DSOs? I'm super curious because you've done it and you've done it for a long time. What are some of your thoughts around that?
Let's go back when I was, like I said, very fortunate to be in Larry Rosenthal's office in New York City, and everyone knows Larry Rosenthal is the premier, veneer office to go to. So I was very, very fortunate to go there. But
that's incredible, by the way. I like
well,
just stop for a second. Like, that's incredible that you got to work there with him.
To my dismay, I was the young kid. So think of a patient that's there. We had celebrity CEOs. We had every mogul you could imagine we had. And you got this young kid walking in and they're like, well, kid, move away. Where's Larry? Where's Larry? So what I had to do, I had to kind of reinvent myself. And, and I had to figure out what type of avatar patient, do I want? And I think that doesn't matter if I'm in New York, if I'm in Birmingham, Michigan, if I'm in Salt Lake City, Atlanta, it doesn't matter. You just have to figure out what avatar do you want. And then you kind of go where that avatar is. So an example, this is what I did. So in New York City, I need to get a haircut. So for me, I went to the biggest celebrity hairstylist you can get. And it was Orbay in New York City. Okay. And why did
you have great hair, by the way?
Well, thank you. It's all white.
Out for you.
It's all white.
I like it. It looks great.
Well, thank you. So I went to Orbay. And why did I go to see him? Because Orbay has a lot of celebrity clientele. And, for me, it was building a relationship with Orbay. You come in, your first appointment, who are you? What do you do? Oh my God, yeah, I have a dentist and da-da-da. And then as you know, when you say you're a dentist or a hygienist, oh, by the way, can you look at this? So what that does is that it kind of opens up the dialogue as much as possible. So from him, was seeing him for 2 to 3 years. And once again, it's something that you always have to continue going. If you do it once or twice and it doesn't work, well, that's not going to happen. It's like going to the gym, you work out once or twice, you're not going to be in shape. So it's one of those things that you just have to do. So I was very fortunate seeing him for years. And from that, I had my own celebrity clientele that came into Larry's office. It was great. All right. How about another one? So I was fortunate. They had the LA Reebok Club where I used to live on the Upper West Side, and then joined the gym, of course. And I wanted to find out who was the best trainer who trained all the celebrities. And then once again, the same thing. So I think it's important, to find out, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of the celebrities and a lot of moguls, they're not calling to make the appointment. They have someone as an assistant to make their appointments for them. So I'll give you an example. I was working out in East Hampton for a little bit because I bought a house in Amagansett. And as I was doing this renovation, I never really worked on Fridays, but in East Hampton, I worked some Fridays. And I was fortunate that I had a logistics manager for the Rolling Stones that came in, built a relationship with her. And then from that, because she's a logistics manager, she does everything for the Stones. So I was very fortunate. She called me up. Hey, Mick has a concert tonight at Madison Square Garden. He wants his teeth clean. He wants them checked out. Can you do it? Sure. What time? 9:00 at night. What? So those are the things that you have to do. If you want that type of avatar, you want that type of clientele, then you kind of have to do whatever it takes, go above and beyond to make sure that happens. So don't think that if you want that type of practice, there's going to be some sacrifices that you're going to have to do. So for me, my personal story, for me being in New York, I was so driven. That's all I did. And I was married at the time. And, looking back in retrospect, it affected my marriage. So, my ex-wife, we're great. We're still great friends. but it affected because for me, I was driven. This is what I wanted to do. I was out. I was going to opening of galleries. I was opening up for restaurants, and because I wanted to be successful. But with that, there are some consequences that come with it. So you have to kind of be prepared. And they always say, the balance of life, what to do as far as your career and work. I mean, there is, but you're going to sacrifice, somewhere. You can't have it all, as they say. So you're going to have to kind of give up something.
Do you, looking back, are you grateful that you made the decisions you made, or do you wish you would have done things differently? Like knowing what you know now, walk me
No,
through, because I think people often wonder this.
yeah, there's no for me. There's no regrets, because even if there was a regret, I always look at it as something that will make me better. Down the road. I mean, listen, we're all gonna have failures. Things are gonna happen, but you have to learn from that. I mean, for someone to say, "Oh, this has never happened to me," and da da da, either they're lying or they have not. They've just graduated yesterday. I even tell my associates, the same thing. And, if they had a bad day, a patient was complaining or something, I said, listen, it's going to happen. As long as you know in your heart you did the right thing, that's all you can do.
I love that. And I appreciate that, because I think so many times people feel like I should have known this right from the get go. But I think a lot of um, learning is experiencing too. And so going through it and making different decisions. And like you said, what's the type of life, what's the type of avatar do I want? And then crafting your practice around that. I really love that you highlight. I feel like you crafted your practice and your craft around the avatar patient and life that you wanted. I think at the beginning you probably hustled a lot more than you thought you would need to, but I
Oh,
think that that's the beginning of practice ownership. I think that's the beginning of any
yeah,
career, and then you're able to then start to curate it into what you wanted it
right.
to be. And I think so
Yeah,
many dentists don't realize that
yeah,
that is a possibility for you if you
yeah.
want it to craft it for what you want.
No, listen, I mean, there's many different practices, as you know. There's the elite practices that are doing veneers, and on an example who took over Larry Rosenthal's office is Mike Appa. Mike Appa is a great dentist. When I was leaving Larry's office, he was coming in, and he took it to the next level. And I missed, from my era, we didn't really have Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. So I'm kind of like the lagger in that particular point. But he took that and made it to a different level as far as his career, going to Dubai, and now he has multiple practices. But once again, there is some sacrifices. I'm sure it has not come easy, to him. He has put in a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication to craft that for him. And I look at it as, man, that's amazing, good for him. Other people can get jealous of that, but they don't understand the hard work, what it takes to get there. It's like the basketball player, like, oh my God, he's making all the, how did he get that? But you forgot all the thousands and thousands of hours being in the gym and also practicing. Sometimes we forget that.
Right. I think this has been so just I love your passion. I love the life that you've lived. I love that you were so committed to never being that person, and then look at how that drive and that determination took you from where you were to where you are today. I'm curious, speaking to dentists who are maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years out, what advice would you give them from all your years of practicing, of the things you've been able to do, the clientele you've had, the team you've had? What would be advice you'd give to that population of dentists right now, knowing everything you know, knowing the climate, knowing the, like I said, DSOs are on the horizon. Do I
Yeah.
become a private practice owner? Do I work corporate? Do I own multi practices? What would you give? Again, we're talking 4 or 5 years out. I feel like this is right where they're starting to get that itch. They figured a lot of things out. What advice would you have for that
So
dentist?
it's funny that you say that, because three of my associates I have been out 4 to 5 years, and we get together, which is great. Which I love is we get together once a month at my house over here, and we kind of go over some continuing education things and just kind of talking to them as far as what their successes are, what their stresses are, so and what they're stuck. We call it the 3 S's. And I always tell them, listen, I don't want you to be me. I want you to be you. If you're interested in Invisalign, then go for it. And I think that a lot of younger dentists feel that, oh my God, I have to do that endo. I have to do that extraction. I have to do that filling. I have to do this because, there's so much money in debt from dental school, and you can't do everything because you're going to get hurt on one perspective. So my advice, I've been doing this, like I said, for 36 years, find out what you really, really love to do and then do that. Is it going to pan off the next day? No, it's going to take time. And I think we live in a world that it's instant gratification. Everyone wants everything done yesterday. It's just the law of averages. You're just going to have to do it, and keep it until you get there. For me, like I said, I was going for the implant route. I loved surgery, and then I found that niche that I wanted to do was the aesthetic world. Okay. And then, okay, we're doing some aesthetics. And we're at Larry's office. We're doing 10 veneers on the bottom, 10 veneers on at the top and the bottom. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, the bite doesn't look that great. I said, well, there's something more to this. And then I went down the rabbit hole. And I did Pete Dawson's course. We did Coy's. I remember at Pankey. So I went another route as far as now doing full mouth rehabilitation, going back to face bow, centric relation, doing everything that needs to be done.
That's a throwback.
Right. And then, getting there. So, for me, that is my niche now. And I'm building a bigger office in Birmingham. I think I'm crazy what I'm doing right now, but I still have passion for what I do. I feel like, when someone said, oh, you've been out for 36 years, I feel like I've only been out for 5 years. Yeah. I'm still love this profession. I love what it's given me, the opportunity, but sometimes I don't like the direction where it's going in. And it kind of goes back to what you mentioned about the DSOs.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
On your take. You've been in this for a long time.
I'm not poo-pooing DSOs. I mean, I think there's a place for everyone. I mean, we know dentists are in Medicaid offices. Great. We know that patients are in PPO offices. Great. Fee for service, better. And then also group practices that, my associates are in. And then there's DSOs. Once again, I'm fortunate to be part of Dicama group, and it's one of the premier law firms that have put all the DSOs together. And some are great, some are amazing, but some have failed. And I think one of the problems I feel that corporate has is that if you're the CEO, you're looking at what? You're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the metrics, right? You're looking at the KPIs. But if you're in the trenches, you can't treat every office as the same. It's different. The hygienist has a different personality. The dentist has a personality. You have different patients, demographic of patients. So I think for dentists, we're just a different animal as far as the field that we're in. It's very, very personal that we have as far as our offices. I mean, and like I said, I have 5 offices. All 5 are completely different. If I try to implement every single detail thing in Birmingham to do it in Detroit, no. Same thing in Detroit to do it at St. Clair Shores? No. It has to be customized to that particular practice.
Yeah, no, and I think that's such wise wisdom because working with hundreds of offices, I don't have an A to Z cookbook. I don't tell them like implement this. I know systems that will work, but we customize it to your area because
that's right.
The patient base, like you said, in New York compared to Birmingham, Michigan, they're going to be very different patients. They're going to have different needs, like all of it is different. The pace of it is going to be different. Your attrition rates will probably look differently. And so I agree with you completely that everything is not apples to apples. I'm curious, how do you lead all 5 of those practices? Do you have what does your team structure look like? Because so many people do get stressed out with multi-practice ownership. What have you done to reduce that stress level for yourself and make sure that they're all successful?
No, it's, we just had our all company meeting. I call it the summit meeting. And, it's amazing that, 10 years ago, I had 1 office and maybe 4 employees.
Did you hear that, everyone? 10 years ago. So this is something that in his 36 years of dentistry, he did 26 years. I also think people need
single practice.
they sometimes feel like they're too old to open up multiple practices. They feel they're too far in their career. They needed to do this earlier. So I hope people are hearing your timeline of 26 years solo practice and now 10 years making 5 practices, but also there is a timeline around that. So continue, please. But I just want to highlight this was not an overnight thing for you either.
It's not, and I'll go back and I'll tell you the reason why for that. And for me, like I said, going to New York, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be that celebrity dentist. And when I came back to Michigan, I centered everything around me. People came, they flew in, from out of state to see me. And one of the things, I can't scale me. And one of the things is that I have to open up the offices and kind of pass the baton to my other associates. So, for me, that was like the biggest thing is the key is letting go. And like I said, we had a summit meeting 2 weeks ago. And like I said, I had 5 employees in one practice. Now I have 5 practices with close to 70 employees. You may say, oh my God, how do you do that? I hire smart people, smarter than me, to do that. I have a great CFO. I have a great regional manager, and I have great office managers. And one of the biggest things that we constant role play a lot of the things that we do in the office. And why is that important? One of the things that we did when COVID happened, before we opened up, we had a month where we did Zoom calls like this, and we did a role play because when patients come back, they're going to have questions. And what are we doing to protect them and ourselves? And it was really important for the front desk. It was really important for our managers, hygienists, and assistants to make sure we're getting our message across. One of the things that I never want to hear on the phone is if a patient asked a question and our front desk, our person, oh, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. So, to me, it's just having those questions answered. And what we did is I call it the kind of like the soft opening, like what a restaurant would do before they opened up fully. They would kind of, bring in some of their guests or their family members to have a soft opening. So that's what we usually do from that. But the main thing, for me is I just hire great people that are around me that will, integrate the vision that I have. So there's a great book, and I highly, highly recommend for dentists. And I know Gino Wickman very well. It's called Traction. I don't know if you've heard the book.
We're diehard Traction people. We help
and
offices with it.
Amazing. And then the follow-up book is Rocket Fuel.
Amen. So, when you were talking about integrator, I was like, he's a visionary, needs the integrator.
I'm the 100%.
Did you?
I mean, for me, I'm definitely the visionary. I know what I want to see, and then my CFO is the integrator. I have so bad ADD. I'm like, oh, squirrel. Okay, what happened over here? Oh, no, get on track. We got to go do this. So for me, like,
find your CFO integrator. Did you go through one of Traction's hiring things? Did you find them through? How did you find that integrator? Because I think that's such a key piece in growth. How did you find yours?
Well, I luckily she was with us and within the company, and we just hired up, for her. She just went from low level to higher, and she got it. She understood the whole, process. I mean, when she read the book, oh my God, this is the missing piece, for us. And I love that passion that she has for that, and then just kind of put everything together. So I was very fortunate in that respect. But when we do our hiring, we hire within our culture and who we are. And, sometimes it's difficult, to do that. We did that right after, COVID because, some people didn't feel like they wanted to come back or didn't feel safe to come back as far as some employees, which is fine. So, and there was a shortage of dental assistants, and, hygienists wasn't an issue for us. It was more assistants. And, I hate to say that we hired people that weren't the right fit. And I'm going to tell you that was a big mistake because it's going to take you longer to find another person. So I'd rather have no one. I'll do it myself compared to not have the right person that would fit in our culture.
I agree. It's wise wisdom. And I think so many people get desperate. And I mean, I've done it. I think we've all done it, right? We've all made those hires and we're like, agreed with you. We'd rather wait it out till the right person comes through rather than doing those
Yeah.
desperate hires.
And
I
it
think it's,
works out, and it really works out. And I'm a true believer of that. I mean, there's a plan, and you just kind of have to wait it out, and it comes in because the same thing in our downtown Detroit office. We were waiting for someone, and we thought someone, oh my God, she's going to be great. Oh my God, she's moving from, from Boston. She's going to come here. She's ran a periodontal office. Oh my God, we love her. And then got ghosted. Like, what the hell
mm-hmm.
happened? And then the next day, we got another resume. Lauren, amazing. I mean, just that blessing that comes through. So I think the best thing is to do is just wait it out, hire within your culture, and if they don't fit, they're not the right team member for you.
I love that. Dr. DiPilla's, something I have found so fascinating with our podcast today, it's just so appreciative. I feel you have wisdom. And I think wisdom oftentimes lacks. And I think it comes from experience. I think you've learned from the things that
You're saying
you've
I'm old.
done. I'm not saying you're old. I'm saying that I hear wisdom from you. And I think you had this wisdom even when you first started your career. I think you learned things, but I feel you lived your own path. I feel like you grew because you wanted to grow, not because you felt like you needed to. I feel like you waited when I'm sure a lot of your other colleagues were building multi practices, and you're like, this is what I'm enjoying doing. And what I've heard is, as you've shifted and morphed throughout your career and the way you've presented it, it sounds like you've done it based on intrigue and curiosity and things that still keep the passion within you. And I feel like you're a great example of someone who can be practicing dentistry for 36 years and still have passion, fire, and fuel behind it, rather than the what I see a lot of right now of burnout. And I was trying to like put the pieces together as we were chatting, and I'm like, I think honest to goodness, you've done everything because it was a passion and a curiosity, and it fueled you rather than drained you. And I
Right.
also really love that you believe that there's a higher path for you. Like you said, it's
Right.
just because one door's closing, it means the other door's opening, but that door's not quite ready yet. So be okay with this
100%.
door closing. But that would how I would summarize you. I'm obviously, please fill in any gaps I may have missed, but I think that that's so refreshing to
Yeah.
hear, um, that I think a lot of us can take stock in and learn from you as well.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. That's wow. Thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
but for me, right now, I think it's important, to, like I said, pass that baton to my other dentist, and kind of elevate them as much as possible. And I think if you're in a group practice or if you're in a single practice, sometimes we live on our own little island and you don't know where to do. I would get a couple of your friend, colleagues, whatever, just go out to a restaurant, hang out, and kind of talk your story, because we're all in it, and we all go through the same things. And maybe I'm blessed with mental resiliency. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of thrown at you. But for me, for my upbringing, I mean, things bother me. Don't get me wrong. I am human, but I know that my purpose is stronger than the noise that I hear that's behind me. And for me, where am I going to go from here? What's the next 10 years look like? And for me, my legacy and what I want to hear is that when I'm long gone and a patient goes to another dentist and says, hey, who's your other dentist? And I say, well, I went to DiPilla. All I want to hear is that, you know what? Yes, I heard it. Great people. That's all I want to hear. You went to one of the best. That's it. That's all I want to hear. I mean, I think that's my legacy, is that make sure that we as a group, as a team or organization, we've done the right thing by you and also by the patients, and also our team too. We got to take care of the team that supports us. Very, very important.
That's beautiful. And I think, as you said that, I think maybe a takeaway from today would be figure out the legacy that you want to leave. I think that legacy. I just did a mastermind group with some people in person, and I had them write when they were, I didn't give them an age. I just said, when you're sitting back looking at your life, what do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? And what do you want it to be said about you? And it was crazy because people started making different decisions in that moment, because the legacy of who they want to be and what they want to leave behind radically shifts what you're doing today. And I think that that's a beautiful takeaway from today. I have loved our conversation. I thoroughly enjoy you as a human. I think you're
Well,
just
thank
doing
you.
a beautiful work and example of keeping the passion alive in dentistry and doing great things no matter what's going on. So,
Yeah.
any last thoughts you have? How can people connect with
I think
you?
for anyone, guys, who have been graduating, I think this is like the best time to be a dentist. I mean, I'm so excited. I mean, the technology is amazing. Things that we used to do before and what we can do now, digital workflow, 3D printing, AI, it's amazing. So, for me, I go into work every day. I'm very passionate what we need to do. But, for me, it's time for me to kind of like maybe work maybe in the chair once or twice a week and then work on the business. And that's where I'm more passionate about as well. And then kind of like I said, elevating everybody else. But once again, this has been a real pleasure. And I can see your passion as well, and much success for yourself.
Likewise. Thank you so much for joining today, Dr.
My
DiPilla.
pleasure.
I hope everybody who's listened takes away a few golden nuggets and gems, because I really do believe there was so much value and wisdom in this podcast today. I think that there's so much beauty. I love podcasting with people like yourself that are just so optimistic of the future. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. My
And
pleasure.
for all of you listening, yes, all of you listening, thank you for joining us. And as always, thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Dental Team Podcast.